In a city built on illusions, the line between art and reality usually stays behind a screen. But for years, a dark secret was vibrating through the streets of Los Angeles, hidden inside the front trunk of a luxury electric car. For millions of fans, the name David was synonymous with heartbreak, moody melodies, and a meteoric rise to fame. They called his music romantic homicide. They didn't know that for one 14-year-old girl, those words would become a literal, gruesome reality. The illusion has finally shattered. The Los Angeles Police Department has made a bombshell announcement that has sent shockwaves through the music industry and the digital world alike. David Burke, the 21-year-old sensation, known to the world as d4vd, is in handcuffs. He is being held without bond, accused of a crime so calculated and so morbid, it defies the imagination. This isn't just a fall from grace. This is the end of a 2-year nightmare for a family that never stopped looking for their daughter. The story began in April 2024. Celeste Rivas Hernandez was just a child, a 14-year-old girl with her whole life ahead of her. To the outside world, she simply vanished. Her mother told investigators the last time she heard her daughter's voice was in the spring of that year. Behind the scenes, there were whispers. Celeste had a boyfriend, a boy named David. They had met where so many teenagers meet today, in the digital shadows of Discord and the virtual battlegrounds of Fortnite. As the months turned into a year, the trail went cold. Celeste was reported missing several times, but the system meant to protect her seemed to stall at every turn. She became another name on a list, another face on a poster, while David Burke's career exploded. He was performing at Coachella, touring the world, and singing emotional ballads that brought fans to tears. But while he was under the bright lights of the stage, something was rotting in the dark. Fast forward to September 2025. A Tesla sedan sat abandoned on a street in Hollywood. It stayed there for days, ignored by the thousands of people passing by until the city finally towed it to an impound lot. That's when the workers noticed it. A foul, unmistakable odor began to drift from the vehicle. When detectives opened the front storage compartment of the Tesla, they found a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their careers. Inside were 2 body bags. Within them were the decomposed, dismembered remains of a human being. The body was in such a state of decay that it had been there for weeks, perhaps longer. It was later identified as Celeste Rivas Hernandez. She was still wearing her black leggings and a tube top. Around her wrist was a metal chain bracelet in the shape of a W. On her ears, small metal studs, and on her fingers, a tattoo that matched one David Burke had on his own hand. The investigation that followed was slow, methodical, and shrouded in secrecy. The Tesla was registered to David Burke. Suddenly, the romantic homicide singer wasn't just a star. He was a primary suspect in a capital murder case. But the police didn't move immediately. They were building an ironclad case. They searched his rental home in the Hollywood Hills. They carried out laptops and electronics, looking for the digital footprint that linked a superstar to a missing child. What they found was chilling. In one of Burke's properties, investigators discovered a high heat burn cage, an incinerator capable of reaching 1,600 degrees. It was an item you would expect to see on a farm, not in an upscale Los Angeles neighborhood. It raised a horrifying question. Was there a plan to make the evidence disappear forever? Suspense built as the months dragged on. In November 2025, a grand jury began hearing evidence. They looked into Burke's travel to Santa Barbara. They looked at his inner circle. In January 2026, David's close friend, Neil Langston, was arrested in Montana. He had refused to testify as a witness in the Los Angeles investigation. The DA's office was playing hardball, dragging Langston back to California to force him to speak. It worked. A week later, Langston was spotted entering a courthouse to testify before the grand jury. The walls were closing in on David Burke, while his fans defended him online, claiming the internet had solved the case months ago. The LAPD was quietly locking in the testimony of his entourage. They wanted to ensure that when they finally made their move, there would be no way out. The details emerging from the medical examiner's office suggested a crime of unimaginable cruelty. Sources claimed the body might have been frozen for a period of time before being placed in the Tesla. This would explain why the smell only became apparent months after she was believed to have died. There were reports that the bones showed signs of different levels of force, suggesting that multiple people may have been involved in the dismemberment. As the police dug deeper, they found that on the very day Celeste was identified in his car, David Burke was reportedly transferring his assets, his money and his properties, into his mother's name. It looked like a desperate attempt to protect his wealth before the handcuffs snapped shut. Even his past interviews began to take on a sinister new meaning. In one video, Burke talked about his alter ego, a character he described as an agent of chaos who committed crimes that he, as a detective, would have to solve. He spoke about retiring in 4 years to live on a deserted island, off the grid, with no digital footprint. At the time, it sounded like the dreams of a young artist. Now it sounds like a blueprint for an escape. While the investigation was at its peak, Burke was spotted active on Fortnite, playing games as if the body of a 14-year-old girl hadn't just been pulled from his car. That game is over. David Burke is sitting in a cell. He faces the possibility of life in prison without the hope of a deal. The evidence is vast: digital messages, grand jury testimony, and the grim physical reality found in the trunk of his Tesla. For Celeste's family, the arrest brings a small measure of justice, but it cannot undo the years of silence and the horror of her final moments. The singer who built a career on the aesthetics of tragedy now finds himself the protagonist of a real one. As the sun sets over the Hollywood hills, the music has finally stopped, leaving behind only the haunting echo of a young girl who deserved to be found much sooner. In the end, David Burke wanted to be remembered as a legend. Now he will be remembered as a cautionary tale of how easily a monster can hide behind a melody.